I can't imagine being out on those properties and hearing the cattle just virtually screaming for help. They could hear them at their homesteads. They were helpless. They couldn't do a thing, but they could hear the noises of these poor animals just trying to get out of the floodwater.
The livestock, the animals, the horses we had to leave behind, that's what's heartbreaking, and we tried that was the first thing we did. We were trying to move them to higher ground before we worried about vehicles, before we worried about the house, before we got ourselves out. So, we busted ourselves to do the best we could at the time. You can replace vehicles, you can rebuild a house, you can rebuild a shed, but those animals, that's the worst.
We estimate probably 10% of our sheep have died, but whether that will be the case in another week, we don't know. I mean, you don't know until you muster down the track, and it's way too wet to do anything with anything at the moment.
We've been inundated by offers to help, which is fabulous. We will need that, but at the moment, there's nothing anyone can do at the moment. But we appreciate the offers, and we certainly know that, within the coming days, we'll be calling on some help.
I want to talk about this because 150,000 head of livestock, 150,000, and those are preliminary numbers. They're expecting these numbers to go up dramatically as they're able to assess the situation, have died in Australia.
Obviously, there are, as you've described, significant losses. As they get out and about, they'll have a more accurate assessment of just how bad that is, but a lot of fencing washed away, dam walls, bywashes, obviously livestock losses.
So the stock have been, the exposure of the stock, so being able to stand in water for so long and not being able to eat because the food's underwater, but being in the rain, being in the cold, some can succumb to that, and as well as that, some also got washed away, unfortunately. We're still in the process of trying to work out what those numbers are. You still need to muster them all and get them together and work out what your final numbers are.
Australia is one of the our largest beef imports into the United States. So I think, we could see this have further impact on beef prices in the United States, because it's not just the livestock that have died, it's the strain that it will put on the Queensland and Australia, and trying to rebuild and eventually have all that grazing land to be able to use again. Because as we've seen with floods across the United States, especially in North Carolina, a lot of that land is not usable right away after a flood, regardless of what people think.
The impact of those people where the water all pools, where it gets together in the river systems, in the major creeks and pools up, that impact has been enormous. It's been devastating on them. It will take them years and years, so 5 years, 10 years to recover fully from this.
And this is all coming from 20 inches that fell from cyclone, different part of the world, Cyclone Diane.
The Bureau warns towns and homesteads could be at risk of flooding for weeks to come.
Yeah, this really was quite out of the blue and not something we're expecting. It was very dry beforehand, and we just had 5 straight days and nights of rain. It was a record flood by any measure. We used to compare with 1974. It quickly went past those levels. So this is something, I'm a 5th generation here in this area, and it's something that we've never seen before.
It's interesting, when we talk about this stuff, and yes, as U.S. consumers, it does impact us that Australia is losing so much livestock. A lot of our lamb comes from Australia. A lot of our beef comes from Australia. But I can't help but think of all of the disasters over the last several years that have taken out tens of thousands, if not 100,000 head of livestock in each disaster. Just for example, the fires in Texas. Look at that impact on the cattle industry. The fires in Oregon last year, that had an impact on the cattle industry.
And then, of course, there's this that happened just a few days ago in Brazil.
Cows caught up in the floodwaters that have ravaged Brazil. Residents here recorded the moment where livestock were caught in the floodwaters that have swallowed entire neighborhoods. Throughout Brazil's Rio de Janeiro region, more than 380 people and 40 pets have been displaced following heavy rains that have spurred officials to declare a state of emergency.
And there's been this global push I mean, it's no secret that there's been a global push to try and reduce the number of ruminants that we have. Sheep, remember the Denver bill of last year, cattle, they burp too much methane. I've got some interesting stuff on that I'll talk about later this week. But today I wanted you to think about Australia. And another thing that I think is a little unusual about the situation is that just last month, Australia was hit with Cyclone Alfred. Cyclone Alfred brought up a lot of conversations online about weather modification and whether or not some of these hurricanes that we've seen are being modified by governments or other people around the world.
Cyclone that's happening in Australia. Something in my intuition is saying it's very sus.
And my intuition is telling me we've come across another gem of a video.
There's a lot of weird energy that's been going on in Australia.
You don't need to be alarmed about that. That's just the Australian people.
There's a massive shift of energy.
It's called wind and rain. That is the energy that a cyclone produces.
And Australia is feeling it.
I've got to say, I don't think that a cyclone off the coast of southeast Queensland, northern New South Wales is being felt in Western Australia. Australia is a huge country, remember?
We all know about HARP and what HARP do.
Make this noise.
Weather control.
Of course.
This cyclone doesn't seem natural to me at all.
Is that so? And what is your experience with cyclones? How do you determine which cyclones are natural and which ones are manufactured? Where did you get your education on the natural development of weather patterns? A free ebook or a Lincoln Bio course?
We have Chinese warships down here that are off the coast of Australia.
Well, say no more. That explains everything.
And now you've got the cyclone going on the coast of Australia.
So these Chinese warships are manufacturing cyclones and sending them to Australia.
There's just a lot of agendas going on right now.
We've got conspiracy theories happening before this cyclone even hit land.
There's always been weather control in this system.
Can any one of these lunatics explain to me the mechanics of manufacturing a weather event like this? And if you know how to do it, why don't you do it yourself?
Weather control is not a new thing.
Prove to us it can be done. Trust me, bro. Plenty of people in the comments agreeing with him. It's weather manipulation to destroy cities so then they can rebuild smarter cities that they can have control over us. Who's they? I got no idea. Do you think the Australian government is capable of something like that? Have you seen the buffoons that we've got in Parliament House?
It's an interesting question, one that, I think everybody should ask. According to the University of Tasmania, and this is a report that's on their website, these universities today, I don't know how much credit to give them. Weather modification by cloud seeding refers to technologies intended to manipulate the weather at a local scale. Over the last 70 years, Australia has played a leading role in cloud seeding research and development. Now, there are a lot of other articles online about Australia and the cloud seeding programs on an island off the coast of Sydney. It does bring into question, could these be experiments that have gone wrong, or are these just floods that have never occurred before? I mean, this flood that's in Queensland right now is bigger than the flood recorded in 1974. Of course, if you go back into archaeological evidence, there is evidence that this area had flooded. There's evidence of fish and other things that show that this area has flooded in history. It's not, if anything, if you made the argument of climate change, we're going backwards in time.
Now, Cyclone Alfred hasn't even made landfall yet, but the Prime Minister couldn't wait to jump at the opportunity to peddle climate alarmism today.
What we know, the science tells us that there would be more extreme weather events, they would be more frequent and they'd be more intense. I think anyone who looks at the science knows that that is what is occurring. I take climate change seriously and my government takes climate change seriously.
Well, it happens every time, doesn't it? Every natural disaster in this country, the zealots like the Prime Minister pop their heads up and grandstand. The number one alarmists over at The Guardian went with, is climate change supercharging Tropical Cyclone Alfred? But guess what? If you actually scroll down to the bottom of that article, it says, quote, the number of tropical cyclones has fallen by 13% in the 20th century. So you can imagine Albo's shocked to read that there's also been a decrease in the number of tropical cyclones observed in the Australian region since at least 1982. These mere facts speak for themselves. But as for Albo, he reckons we must trust him because
I was the climate change spokesperson 20 years ago.
Terrific.
And given 70 years of research and development and being an industry leader in weather modification, it just makes you wonder about the whole situation. I don't know. I don't have all the answers for you. I just, found that interesting, wanted to draw attention to what is happening out there in Australia. It is absolutely horrible. This is the type of stuff that we do have to pay attention to. Yes, there are tariffs on trade from Australia, but I don't think that would have necessarily impacted a whole lot of beef imports from Australia, especially right now at a time where we're already facing high beef prices here in the U.S. But this particular event could dramatically impact beef exports, not just to the United States, but around the world. And as you know from our global food supply, it's global, right? I mean, there's ebbs and flows around the world, and how those ebbs and flows happen end up impacting us here in the United States.
A lot of people who don't work on the land will soon inevitably see higher prices for things like meat at the supermarkets, at butchers. Tell us about the impact that those higher prices, at what cost has that come to you and other farmers?
Well, I think the average cost to a farmer here is going to be $300,000, $500,000. There'll be some in the millions of dollars. So, yeah, there may be a flow-on cost, but it might be a cup of coffee a day. But for the producers here, it is the hundreds of thousands of dollars running into the millions, depending on your size. But just for an average mum and dad farmer here, it is well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I think it's worth asking questions. It's worth asking questions. Why do we even have to have weather manipulation? Why do we do it? And what could go wrong? Is this something that went wrong, or is this an attack on our food supply, or is it just Mother Nature? I mean, Mother Nature is a powerful beast when she wants to be. One thing's for sure, it's unusual, especially after Cyclone Alfred. It's definitely a little weird.
Ancient eras and natural selection have refined and tailored pristine fibers with the resilience for today's days. Evolving beyond the last ice age, bison wool is nature's most dependable activewear. Buffalo Wool Company, 100% proven by nature, 100% American made.
Check out the Buffalo Wool Company collection at yanasatradingco.com.